Good morning. Welcome to Sociology 6315 online. Research Methods, Qualitative Methods, Sociological Practice Research 1. I'm Steve Blanchard and I'm the instructor for the course. I will be doing some videos over the course of the semester. This is the first time I've done videos for online classes, so but I think we'll make it work. I thought that doing videos to supplement, complement, however you want to say, prof's notes and other sorts of interaction that we'll have, like principally discussion, would be of help to you, and it's helpful to me just to kind of be doing this sort of thing, getting engaged in the course, I guess we'd say. This course is the first of really 2 semesters. So the Qualitative Methods, the 6316 is Quantitative Methods. The overall combination of the 2 is called Mixed Methods, and one of the texts that we'll use mostly towards the end of the semester for the setup of your qualitative study is this book. I think you can see it. Mixed methods have become prominent in social sciences over the last few years, and I think here at the university we've thought for quite a number of years that while qualitative can stand alone, one can do a qualitative study and then let that be the study, even publish it or whatever. Quantitative studies require qualitative study to enhance their validity. Unfortunately, most quantitative studies don't have a qualitative side to them, or at least one that we see that's published, and probably they really don't. Quantitative studies are often from secondary data, like the census data or data collected by somebody else, administrative data, and so the analysis is sprung off that without really taking the time to talk to the people from which that data were drawn. For example, if we were to use the U.S. Census data descriptors of the west side of San Antonio, we could probably write some good papers, let's say. An interesting study about the social cultural dynamics of the west side. But on the other hand, maybe it wouldn't be quite so good as it would be if we were to, prior to doing the quantitative study, we were to go into the west side and do some qualitative research, some qualitative conversations, listen to the voice of the west siders, focus groups, key informant interviews, and that sort of thing. Conversations. We can listen to the voice and test the validity of that data that was collected for the census, obviously for a whole different purpose than ours, mostly for enumerating the population. But to test the validity of that data in the census as a good descriptor of the west side. So I think you'll find as we go through this course that it's a very reasonable approach to research, and anyway, I think you'll find it an interesting thing to do. The qualitative side of this, which is this semester, we will do a qualitative study of some sort, be one of your choice, and we'll talk about that as we get into the semester. And then it'll involve developing a interview guide for focus groups and key informant interviews, maybe a sample of anywhere from 1 to 7 to 8 or 9 people. It's not important the breadth in qualitative as it is the depth. So in qualitative we're more likely to interview a small number of people at length in order to get to the depth of what the situation or the human issue is, or the social phenomena is. Whereas in quantitative it's about breadth, and so qualitative is often about exploring in depth, and quantitative is more about breadth and explanation. So the thing that we will do this fall in the qualitative project, towards the end of the semester we'll begin talking about how we can begin to think about recasting it in the spring as a quantitative study. And so for example, your interview guide that you've developed questions for your small qualitative sample will become sort of the seed for the elaboration into a survey instrument for the quantitative study. Now on the qualitative side, you'll probably do some interviews, a handful of interviews here and there, something reasonable to do, I think, in the course. But on the quantitative side, it'll be a proposal. And we'll talk about this later in the semester, and certainly at the beginning of the spring. It'd be extraordinarily difficult for you to conduct a quantitative survey that would involve 1,000 people, perhaps, at least 300 or 400. But we'll talk about probability sampling and all of that later in the semester, but really in the first part of next semester. So that's kind of what we're going to do. Qualitative this semester, quantitative next. Qualitative is exploration, quantitative is explanation, qualitative is in depth, quantitative is in breadth, and combined they are mixed methods. One brings the voice to the issue of interest, and the other one brings the more quantitative aspect to the issue in a way, and that's kind of a triangulation. We're not just focusing on one aspect or looking at it from another aspect. We're trying to see it as a crystal and look at the quantitative facets and the qualitative facets and all of that. That makes a much more refined, much better study, I think, and that's the impetus now in social sciences. All right, let's talk for a minute about qualitative studies and what we're going to do, qualitative methods. We have a interesting situation, you and I, as social scientists. For one thing, and maybe for the thing, the object of interest to us is invisible. If you think of love or friendship or family or success or things that resonate with us, you don't really see them. You see indicators of their presence, perhaps. We'll talk about that in a second. Unlike the physical scientist who has a frog in front of them for dissecting, they can see it, they can touch it, they can smell it, they can hear it, they can taste it. They can use their sensory apparatus to look at that physical object in front of them. For us, the object, the social object, if we'll call it that, is not so easy to see. The indicators of the presence of the frog are manifest in our sensory apparatus in a way that the indicators of the presence of a social phenomenon are not manifest. So we have to take an extra step or two in order to see, in italics, shall we say, the indicators of that presence. And that's what this class is about. The course, the principal book is called Phenomenological Research Methods. We can call a frog a phenomenon, no doubt, and you and me a phenomenon. But here we're talking about the objects of interest to us, those phenomenological objects, the phenomenologic of a frog, interest of science, the phenomenological of love, of interest to social scientists, let's say, or friendship. So we're going to use the phenomenological research methods. How we can, in these methods, we'll see that there are ways that we can bring that, the presence of that to the forefront. Not so much that we can see it, perhaps in italics we can see it, but the indication of its presence. So you'll you'll see on the syllabus, which I'll post up on the blackboard. This is Thursday, and I think the class begins in a couple of days on Saturday. The blackboard, we're using the old blackboard, by the way, for this semester, but I've got the course blackboard course framework set up. I have to post a couple of items today to get it really up and running, and then send everybody an email in the morning and say it's up. Tomorrow morning being Friday, that'll be the Friday the 23rd. Yeah. Okay. In this phenomenological research methods, we're going to do some practicing. We're going to do a number of research practices. One of those is the method itself, the epoche and the phenomenological reduction and the imaginative variation, and that would be something like where we'll speak at length about this, and it's a critical piece. It sounds, when we're talking about it, a little on the absurd side, but then we make a lot of assumptions as we navigate the social world, do we not? For one thing, we assume that it's there, and of course I suppose it is there, at least in terms of the consensus that we all agree that it's there. We'll talk more about that as the semester goes. But for example, if I'm in my office sitting on a stool and I look out the window in the mall down there, and there are a man and a woman standing there or sitting on a bench, I might imagine what they could be. They could be brother and sister, they could be new acquaintances, they could be close friends, they could be lovers, they could be a number of things that they are. And because it's a man and a woman sitting together on a bench, I make the assumption that they're boyfriend and girlfriend or something. But I may be way off the mark. I don't see really what they are is not visible to me. I can see their two selves, their two bodies there, but that phenomenon that exists between them, that they see and feel, I don't have any indication of what it is. So I would do the epoché and disabuse myself, remove myself from myself any expectations of understanding and interpretations of what that is. And then I would reduce down, and then I would open up my eyes and look and reduce and focus only for a moment on that, just only on that. Try and exclude everything else in the environment. Look at that, do the phenomenological reduction, reduce to that phenomenon, and look at it as if it were for the first time, as though I'd never seen it before in my life. And then my imaginative variation will then pull up out of me things that might be interpretive. In other words, what I'm doing here is not sort of preconceiving what is there, but I'm trying to clear my mind and soul so that I see it as if it were for the first time, and then reduce to it, remove things from the environment that are influencing my interpretation of it, and then let my imagination, the indications of what that might be, come forth. Now, this is about this couple, but we would do the same thing if we were going to the west side. Don't go to the west side of San Antonio or the east side of Houston or wherever you might be with the assumptions that you know what that place is about. And you may live there and have some pretty good idea. But to the extent that you go already knowing, you've got a grid on, you've got some interpretation, a framework for understanding it. And we don't want that. In qualitative methods, we want to remove that and see what is in front of us as if it were for the first time. Give it voice, not our voice, but its voice. Now I'm going on and on about this, but it's an important point, and we'll talk more about it later. There are going to be some exercises, some practice exercises that you do, practice assignments. They're all phenomenological. I can open this page up here. One of them is, we'll do that exercise we just talked about. That's practice assignment 1. We'll do that in the first part of the course. And then we have something called Ethno Methodology. And Ethno Methodology is about breaching the assumptions that we have in our interaction. If you, for example, if you go to a mall, one of those enclosed malls, generally people are going to move to the right as they go around the mall. Maybe that's influenced by we are on the right-hand side of the lane when we drive. If you go around to the left, if you go around to the right, you can kind of look at the windows as you go, and you're pretty going with the flow. You don't have to worry about bumping into somebody. But if you go to the left, you're breaching the routine, shall we say, and while you look at the window, you better keep your right eye or your eye going this way, because people coming this way are assuming no one's going at them. So, and who said we do it that way? There's no signs when you enter a mall that says hang to the right. There are some assumptions that we make walking down the hallway. There are numerous scores of these that we'll explore. We're going to do ethnomethodology to see what are those ethnic, not ethnic in terms of race and ethnic, but what are those, like in ethnography, what are those ethnographic rules that appear, perhaps culturally derived, that facilitate our navigation so we don't really have to think about it. We just move through the phenomenon. Then we're going to do some observation, participant observation, where you sit at a table and observe the interaction and participate in it. Non-participant observation, where you'll be sort of at a distance and observing interaction and then trying to interpret what's going on. And then we'll do sociograms, which are kind of diagramming the flow and exchange of the energy and conversation between the participants. And then we'll do something called dramaturgy. And it's about in a way, it's about how all the world is a stage, as Shakespeare might say. It's how we interact with one another, and how, in a way, not that we're playwrights, and in a sense we are playwrights, especially if we're going to be setting up an interview. We think about what is going to be the context of the interview, and what are we going to do in order to influence the rapport, to get a good connection with the respondent to our interview, and all of that. But even in life, there are things that we do, roles that we play. Some of them are like professor and student, some of them are friends, some of them are informal, some of them are formal. But that the dramaturgy is about exploring the dynamics of how we interact, and how some of it is scripted and some of it is not. And some of it is tightly scripted, and some of it is sort of scripted on the fly. And we'll talk about dramaturgy. I guess it'll probably be somewhere in mid-October. And then there'll be a practice project. The practice project will be identifying 1, 2, 4, 5, however many individuals that you want to do an interview, to do your qualitative project, some social phenomenon of interest to you, and we can talk about those as we get into the semester. I think you'll see from the syllabus that there's class participation. I'll have that set up. I want interaction in the discussion, collegial kind of interaction, postings every week, substantive postings on the theme of Ethno Methodology or Qualitative Methods. And there's an expectation of that, and you'll see that in the syllabus. And then the 4 practice assignments in the practice project. But I think the discussion to me is very important. Ordinarily, if this were a different kind of environment, we'd be sitting around a seminar table, you, me, as graduate students and a graduate prof, and engage one another for 3 hours straight, and take a break for a cup of coffee or something. But here we're strung out over a semester, over a week or 2 weeks on an assignment that we would sit for 3 hours and a seminar once a week. We're now strung out over hours of a week in a linear discussion that makes it difficult to form the unity of the conversation. I want us to think of ourselves as a virtual seminar, and come to the table, the virtual table during discussion, as though we were in a seminar, sitting around a seminar table in a classroom somewhere. So anyway, this is what the course will be about. Those of you who don't know who I am, I've been on the campus about 20 years. I've got a PhD from the University of Texas in Austin. I'm a sociologist, actually a demographer by training, graduated from the Population Research Center at UT in Austin. It was affiliated with sociology, so I got a sociology degree, and I'm glad I did, because it's contextual perspective on health. I have a master's degree in public health, so the sociological perspective, contextual perspective on human behavior has turned out to be invaluable to me in terms of my pro bono work and community work and teaching. So anyway, I look forward to working with you this semester, and I'll post another video in a week or so. And there'll be some materials that'll be up on the website. By the time you look at this, the website will be up and running, and you'll see what there is out there to do. So I look forward to working with you, and you take care.